This chat bubble is brought to you by Netflix. For a free 30-day trial, head over to netflix.com/GamebreakerTV. Now, Blizzard's Ghostcrawler took to Twitter late last night in response to an interesting question. The question was, what would be the big feature of Mists of Pandaria? Now, the person asking the question spoke about the big features of Wrath being the dungeon finder and Cataclysm being the raid finder. So he then went on to say, what would be the standout new feature in Mists? It's an interesting question, and Ghostcrawler's response was even more interesting. He simply said, we haven't announced it yet. Now, the question arises, what could this new feature be? Put your tinfoil hats on, everybody, and let's have a look at some of the features that Mist has already added. So, of course, the big one is cross-realm zones, which is highly controversial, and, of course, the scenario technology. Now, what it implies when Ghostcrawler's tweeting that we haven't announced this big new feature yet is, of course, that it's going to be something that's bigger than either cross-realm zones or scenarios. Now, I guess scenarios you could probably say aren't that big a deal. They're not like a huge thing. They're kind of an interesting addition to the Dungeon Finder system, but cross-realm zones is a pretty big thing. And maybe there's an element here of Blizzard not wanting Mists of Pandaria to be the patch that's remembered for bringing in cross-realm zones, which is a feature that a lot of people aren't huge fans of. So for Ghostcrawler to think it could be something that would outdo both cross-realm zones and scenarios in terms of a big feature, it had to be something that had a real major lasting impact on the game. So, I mean, much as a PvP enthusiast, I hate to admit it, I think that something like that is going to have to be PvE related. I mean, the new PvP gearing system, which is probably the biggest change that's happened to PvP in, well, gosh, years, that's already been announced. So it's not that he's talking about. And I don't think that big PvP changes are going to be considered like groundbreaking, the change that you remember an expansion by people other than the PvP community. And although it's a big community, we're certainly a sort of small minority in terms of the general player base. So that means it's likely to be something to be PvE related. So what do you think it could be? I'm leaning towards the introduction to some changes to raiding. Perhaps 15-man raids? I know it's come up so many times, but I kind of feel like it would be a good size. We spoke about this on a recent Legendary. I don't know. It would be another tier for them to tune, and I don't think somehow that's going to be it. So perhaps it could be changes to tapping. As I explained in the article below, since the introduction of cross-realm zones, there's been quite some conversation about how seeing other players is actually a detriment to your progress. And you don't want to see other players. You want to be all by yourself in a zone all by yourself with mobs all to yourself and nodes all to yourself so that you can get all the stuff that you need to continue with your quest. To see other players is actually a real pain. And Ghostcrawler has actually tweeted several times about how he agrees with this, how it's a valid argument, and how something should be done to change it. So maybe that is this thing. Along the same lines, perhaps it could be something to do with level scaling, like in Guild Wars 2, where you're scaled down to the level appropriate to the region you find yourself in. I don't think it's going to be that. I'd like to see it. I think it's a good idea. And I think that there's been talk in the past of them introducing it in Battlegrounds so that you don't have the current situation where a level 19 is just beating the living daylights out of like level 14s in low-level Battlegrounds. I think that's a good idea. But I think in the world, out in PvE especially, it would be a real pain for high-level players and people who wanted to solo old content. So in all honesty, I can't really see them doing that. Other things that people have suggested to me on Twitter include the bringing of the pet battling to the mobile WoW Armory system, excuse me. So if you have an Android phone or an iPhone, you can get the WoW Armory mobile, which it seems like it could support pet battles. But I don't really think that that's enduring, game-changing content. I mean, it just wouldn't be a big enough deal. It wouldn't be a thing that would push scenarios and cross-realm zones out of our minds as the thing that was brought in Mists of Pandaria. I don't know. I'm out of ideas here, guys. Do tell me what you think. I'm really interested to see what you have in mind in the comments in the article below. Stick that tinfoil hat on and let's speculate a little bit about what Blizzard are up to here and what Ghostcrawler is talking about. And as always, do keep it locked and dialed to Gamebreaker TV for all your gaming needs.